The light within the hegemon's grand chamber pulsed with the slow, rhythmic beat of the Vithra heartmote, a luminescent organic growth embedded high above the central dais, casting long, shifting shadows across the assembled council. The air, thick with the pheromonal traces of a dozen species, hummed with a tension that threatened to fracture the very crystalline walls. Before them, a holographic projection of the Terran system swirled, the pale blue marble of Earth a stark, unsettling contrast against the red, hungry eye of the Vithra fleet icon. Admiral Katar, his multi-jointed limbs clicking against the polished floor, presented his report with the stiff precision of a seasoned predator. His species, the Kyler, were renowned for their tactical brilliance and unforgiving nature, traits that had forged the hegemony's expansion for millennia. Yet even R's usual stoicism was subtly fractured, a barely perceptible ripple in the chitinous plates of his forehead. The preliminary strike on the Terran primary world designated Earth was executed precisely as ordered. Katar's voice resonated with the low, guttural tones of his kind, amplified by the chamber's acoustic dampeners. Our forces engaged their orbital defenses, which proved rudimentary, easily overwhelmed. Planetary bombardment began, yet the expected outcome did not materialize. A collective intake of breath rippled through the chamber, a cacophony of sibilant hisses, clicking mandibles, and the faint, resonating hum of psychic species. Hegemon Velar, a being of pure light and psionic energy, shimmering atop the dais, extended a tendril of pure thought. Elaborate, Katar. What anomaly could defy a hegemony first wave? The hegemon's presence was a palpable weight, a living embodiment of the collective will and ancient power of the Vithra. Its light intensified, a beacon of silent, crushing demand. Katar shifted, a flicker of something akin to unease in his multiple eyes. Hegemon, the Terrans, they did not retaliate with conventional force. Not immediately. Their planetary shields collapsed as predicted. Our orbital sensors confirmed widespread atmospheric disruption, seismic anomalies consistent with the bombardment parameters. But the response was not a surrender, nor was it a chaotic, desperate resistance. He paused, and the silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with unspoken dread. Their communication channels, which had been previously transmitting what we categorized as primitive scientific and cultural data, ceased. A complete cessation. No distress signals, no desperate pleas, only silence, and then a single encrypted broadcast. The holographic projection of Earth shimmered, and a new overlay appeared, a complex fractal pattern of unknown origin. It pulsed slowly with an almost organic rhythm. This signal hegemon emanated from the remnants of their global communication network. Our decryption algorithms, which have never failed to penetrate even the most sophisticated precursor encryptions, have been unable to fully render it. We have fragments, partial data streams, but the core remains elusive. It is unlike anything we have encountered. Ambassador Xylos of the Eldra, a serpentine species known for their diplomatic acumen and deep-seated paranoia, unfurled a frill of iridescent scales. Admiral, the very notion is preposterous. A fledgling species without even interstellar travel capability beyond rudimentary probes resists our decryption protocols. Are we to believe these Terrans possess a technology superior to our own, yet hide it behind a facade of technological infancy? Xylos's voice was a soft, sibilant whisper, but it carried the weight of skepticism and suspicion that permeated the Eldra worldview. Ambassador, my sensors do not lie, my tactical units do not fabricate data. The signal is real. The silence that followed our bombardment was absolute, and the subsequent planetary scan revealed a significant drop in their global energy signatures, yet no signs of widespread panic or societal collapse. It is as if they simply retreated, disappeared beneath the surface or into some unknown pocket dimension. The scale of this withdrawal, if it is indeed what occurred, defies conventional logistical models for a planet-bound species. R's voice, though firm, carried an underlying current of frustration, a dissonant note in the usual symphony of confident pronouncements from a Kyler commander. Counselor Vesk, a bulbous, ambulatory fungus form from the nutrient-rich worlds of the Galactic, extruded a tendril of bioluminescent spores into the humid air. Admiral, this report is unsettling. We initiated this action based on predictive models of Terran expansionism. Their rapid technological growth, their propensity for aggressive resource acquisition within their own system, and the sheer audacity of their nascent ventures into faster-than-light principles, albeit primitive, marked them as a potential threat to hegemony stability in the future, a preemptive strike, A surgical excision of a cancerous growth before it metastasizes was deemed the most logical course. Are you now suggesting that our logic was flawed, that this Earth is more than the sum of its primitive parts? Vesk's voice was a low, resonant rumble, a counterpoint to Xylos's hiss. The Gelac valued pragmatism above all, and inefficiency was anathema to their highly optimized collective consciousness. Predictive models were sound, Counselor. The Terrans were on a trajectory that, left unchecked, would inevitably bring them into conflict with established hegemony interests. Their aggressive internal conflicts, their history of resource depletion on their home world, their seemingly boundless curiosity and drive for exploration, all pointed to a species that would expand relentlessly. The decision was not flawed. What we have encountered is an unknown variable within the equation of their threat assessment. Katar met Vesk's glowing bioluminescence with an unwavering gaze. Hegemon Velar pulsed with an internal conflict, the light wavering between crimson and amethyst. The question remains, Admiral, what is this unknown variable? What are the Terrans capable of? And what is the meaning of this broadcast? Was it a warning, a challenge, a declaration of war? The Hegemon's thought voice was a chisel against stone, demanding clarity in the swirling fog of the unknown. Hegemon, based on the limited deciphered fragments, the broadcast appears to be a lament, a statement of profound disappointment, and a declaration of intent but not of aggression in the manner we understand it. One recurring phrase, partially translated, speaks of a terrible lesson learned and the cost of an avoidable ignorance. Katar projected the fragmented text onto the holographic display, a series of geometric symbols and phonetic approximations. Our linguists are working tirelessly, but the contextual layers are immensely complex. Their language structure, even in its most basic form, seems to incorporate philosophical nuance far beyond a simple declarative statement. Xylos shuddered, a ripple of scales along his spine. A lament. They were struck down, their home world ravaged, and they respond with a lament. This is not the behavior of a logical species. This is unsettling. Perhaps it is a form of psychological warfare designed to induce uncertainty, to make us doubt our righteous cause. The Eldra had a long and bloody history of psychological warfare themselves, and they understood the subtle currents of fear and doubt better than most. Uncertainty is precisely what they have achieved, Ambassador, Katar conceded, a rare admission of fallibility for a Kyler. Our fleet remains in orbital lock but without a clear objective. There is no enemy to engage, no fleeing vessels to pursue, no planetary resistance to suppress. It is as if the entire population of their primary world simply evaporated. Our deep scans detect residual biological signatures, but in configurations that defy explanation. Vast subterranean networks, far beyond what their observable surface technology indicated. And the energy output from these networks is minimal, yet sustains structures of unimaginable scale. The revelation hung in the air, a palpable shockwave. Subterranean networks of unimaginable scale. This implied foresight, planning, and a level of societal organization that contradicted the hegemony's initial assessment of their technological capabilities. If they had possessed such infrastructure, why had they not deployed more robust surface defenses? Why the apparent vulnerability? Counselor Vesk rumbled, his bioluminescence dimming slightly. Are you suggesting, Admiral, that our intelligence was catastrophically flawed? That the Terrans possessed a concealed capability of this magnitude, and we were blind to it? The cost of this oversight could be immense. The Gelac prided themselves on their meticulous intelligence gathering, their predictive algorithms rarely yielding such glaring discrepancies. The intelligence was based on observable data, Counselor. The Terrans projected an image of a burgeoning but fundamentally primitive spacefaring civilization. Their energy signatures, their material science, their limited weapons systems, all aligned with our threat assessment. Their internal conflicts, their reliance on fossil fuels, their primitive digital communication, all painted a picture of a species on the cusp of interstellar awakening, but still decades, perhaps centuries, from posing a genuine threat. This subterranean infrastructure, this capacity for silent withdrawal, it was completely undetectable by our conventional methods. It implies a mastery of stealth, of energy signature manipulation that rivals even our most advanced clandestine operations. Katar's voice was now laced with genuine frustration, a testament to the depth F the enigma. Hegemon Velar pulsed again, the light coalescing into a brilliant white. Then we have indeed underestimated them. A grave error, but an error that must now be rectified. What is the immediate course of action, Admiral? Do we commit more forces to planetary invasion? Do we seek out these subterranean networks? Or do we attempt to re-establish communication based on these lamenting fragments? Hegemon to commit ground forces blindly into an unknown, potentially vast subterranean complex against a species capable of such a coordinated, silent withdrawal would be an act of extreme recklessness. We have no intel on their internal defenses, their subterranean combat capabilities, or even their true population numbers. Our orbital scans show no signs of active military deployment, but that could simply mean their methods are beyond our current detection. And to attempt communication based on fragmented philosophical concepts risks exposing our own uncertainty, potentially revealing a weakness. Katar was weighing his words carefully, the implications clear. For a Kyler, admitting weakness was anathema. Ambassador Xylos coiled tighter, his scales flaring with agitation. We cannot afford to appear weak. The hegemony's reputation, its very foundation of dominance, relies on swift, decisive action. If other nascent species perceive even a momentary hesitation, it could embolden defiance across the fringe worlds. No, hegemon, we must project unwavering strength. Perhaps a deeper bombardment, saturation of the planetary crust, to ensure no such networks can survive. Vesk rumbled in disagreement. Ambassador, a deeper bombardment carries significant risks. The Terran world, despite its primitive appearance, is tectonically unstable. A saturation bombardment could trigger a cascade of seismic events, render the planet uninhabitable, and destroy any potential resources we sought to acquire. Furthermore, if these subterranean networks are truly as extensive as Admiral Katar suggests, a surface bombardment would merely drive them deeper, making future acquisition even more difficult. We need intel. We need understanding, not more blind aggression. The debate raged, a clash of strategic doctrines and cultural biases. The Kyler ever aggressive and direct, the Eldra manipulative and suspicious, the Gilak pragmatic and resource-focused, all speaking from the accumulated wisdom and folly of their long histories, yet none truly comprehending the new variable. The Terrans, in their perplexing silence, had thrown a wrench into the finely tuned machinery of hegemony decision-making. Hegemon Vilar, observing the council, absorbed the conflicting viewpoints. The internal light within its form pulsed with increasing intensity, a visual manifestation of its processing power. The initial directive was clear: neutralize a potential threat. Acquisition of resources was a secondary, though welcome, benefit. But the cost of this neutralization must not outweigh the benefit. Admiral Katar, your assessment of the risk of ground deployment is noted. Counselor Vesk, your concerns regarding planetary integrity are valid. Ambassador Xylos, your focus on hegemony prestige is understood. But prestige without understanding is hollow. We face an unknown, and in the face of the unknown, blind force is often the most dangerous course. The hegemon's light began to shift, to expand, bathing the entire chamber in a soft, ethereal glow. The individual arguments of the council members faded into murmurs. We initiated the strike. The burden of understanding now falls to us. We cannot simply retreat, nor can we escalate without comprehending the true nature of this. Earth. Admiral Katar, redeploy a portion of your fleet. Establish a wide-spectrum sensor grid around the Terran system. Prioritize non-intrusive scanning. Find these subterranean networks. Map them. Ascertain their purpose, their energy signatures, their potential inhabitants, and dedicate every resource to deciphering that Terran broadcast. We must understand the lament and the avoidable ignorance it speaks of. Katar bowed his many-jointed head. It shall be done, hegemon, but I caution the Terrans have already demonstrated a capacity for deception and concealment. This will not be a simple task. Few endeavors of true consequence are, Admiral, and perhaps this endeavor holds more consequence than we initially perceived. A species capable of such a profound, silent retreat, a species that responds to existential threat not with rage, but with a lament, is a species that demands a different kind of attention. A species that might indeed represent a final danger for an empire accustomed to simpler forms of conquest. We struck first. Now we must understand what we have truly awakened. The hegemon's light dimmed, receding back to its dais, leaving the council members in the lingering glow of their own uncertainty, the holographic Earth still. Swirling, silent, a blue beacon of an unyielding enigma. Weeks bled into months. The hegemony's vast intelligence apparatus, accustomed to the swift unraveling of planetary defenses and the straightforward suppression of nascent civilizations, found itself mired in an unprecedented quagmire of data. The Terran system, once dismissed as a minor strategic objective, had become a consuming obsession. Admiral Katar, now leading the dedicated Terran observational fleet, pored over endless streams of sensor readings. His command center, a cavernous space normally alive with the clipped orders and precise tactical displays of an active war zone, was now a cathedral of quiet analysis. The air shimmered with complex simulations, algorithmic extrapolations, and the frantic pace of hegemony linguists attempting to crack the Terran broadcast. The subterranean networks were real, and they defied all known engineering principles for a species of the Terran's apparent technological tier. Sprawling deeper than the hegemony's deep-core seismic probes could accurately map, they formed an intricate lattice beneath the ravaged surface. They were energy-efficient to an almost impossible degree, sustaining what appeared to be vast, self-contained biospheres. Yet no detectable offensive weaponry, no discernible military staging areas. It was as if the Terrans had simply moved their civilization underground, with no intention of fighting back in the conventional sense. This passivity, this unsettling lack of expected aggression, was more unnerving to Katar than any superweapon could have been. Ambassador Xylos, having been granted observational access to Katar's analytical chambers, slithered closer to a particularly vexing holographic projection, a 3D rendering of one of the immense subterranean biospheres. "This is madness, Admiral. A species of their level cannot construct such an infrastructure without immense industrial output, massive energy consumption, and highly specialized materials processing. Our initial scans showed none of this. It is as if they willed these structures into being." His forked tongue flicked, tasting the strange alien data. "Indeed, Ambassador. Our materials scientists have identified traces of advanced composite alloys within the structural integrity fields, materials that should be beyond their capabilities. Their energy signatures are incredibly low-key, almost imperceptible against the planetary background noise. It is a level of technological concealment that suggests centuries, perhaps millennia, of development." Katar's voice was devoid of emotion, a mask he wore against the profound cognitive dissonance the Terrans induced. Counselor Vesk, present in a floating holographic projection from the hegemony core, added his rumbling voice. "And the broadcast, Admiral, any further progress on the lament?" "Partial translation has yielded further phrases, Counselor. They speak of a sacred trust broken, of the galactic dawn being marred by primitive fears." The word primitive is used repeatedly almost as a descriptor for the hegemony itself, not for their own species. It is insulting in its quiet condemnation. Katar's many eyes focused on the shimmering script. "They do not appear to be fearful, they appear to be disappointed. And intensely, profoundly ethical, in a way we have not encountered in any expanding civilization." "Ethical?" Xylos scoffed, his scales rippling in disgust. "What ethics did they display in their internal conflicts? Their environmental degradation, their history is rife with brutality and self-destruction. This lament is a facade, a manipulation. They seek to disarm us with guilt." "Perhaps, Ambassador," Katar countered, "or perhaps we are observing a species that has truly evolved beyond those self-destructive tendencies. A species that, having overcome its own darkness, finds the darkness in others to be a source of profound sorrow. It is a philosophy that bewilders our tactical models. We anticipate aggression. They present principled withdrawal." The hegemon's directive to understand rather than merely destroy had inadvertently led to an even deeper sense of unease. The Terrans were not just technologically baffling, they were ideologically incomprehensible. Their reaction to the hegemony's aggression was not what the hegemony would have done. It was something profoundly other. Then a new development. A series of deep space probes deployed by the hegemony to scan the outer reaches of the Terran system for any precursor anomalies stumbled upon something extraordinary. Far beyond the Kuiper belt, nestled within a gas giant's complex ring system, a structure. Not a natural formation, not a hegemony scout, and not a primitive Terran outpost. "Hegemon Council," Katar's voice echoed through the holographic meeting, now tinged with genuine awe. "Our deep space probes have located an artificial structure. Its energy signature is dormant, but its S. Cal defies explanation. It is a megastructure, unlike anything cataloged in hegemony archives. It appears to be an orbital station, but its dimensions suggest it could house an entire planetary population. And its material composition matches the advanced composites we detected within the Terran subterranean networks." A gasp, a collective rustle of bodies and minds swept through the council. An orbital megastructure, dormant, and constructed from materials the Terrans should not possess. This was not mere concealment, this was a deliberate grand deception. A deception or a revelation? Hegemon Vilar's thought voice was a distant bell, resonating with a new, unsettling curiosity. Admiral, deploy a diplomatic research vessel, approach the structure, attempt to activate it, do not use force, do not use aggression, we will attempt to bridge this chasm of misunderstanding. The avoidable ignorance they speak of, we may be staring directly into its void. Katar, against his Kyler instincts, agreed. The Terrans had forced a reevaluation of every hegemony paradigm, and for the first time in his long, distinguished career, he felt the chill of genuine uncertainty, not just tactical ambiguity, but existential doubt. The Empire had struck Earth first, but what precisely had it struck? And what in its striking had it unleashed? The answer, he felt, lay not in weapons, but in understanding. The hegemony diplomatic research vessel, the Starlight Seeker, a sleek, unarmed craft designed for first contact and archaeological survey, drifted silently towards the colossal Terran megastructure. Its hull, a mosaic of advanced sensor arrays, absorbed the faint cosmic radiation reflecting off the titanic edifice. Commander Jelra of the Diplomatic Corps, a serene Vitani known for her exceptional empathy and linguistic aptitude, directed the approach. Her species communicated primarily through a complex interplay of bioluminescent patterns and resonant frequencies, allowing for nuanced emotional and intellectual exchange. "Sensors indicate no active defenses, Commander," reported her lead tactical officer, a multi-limbed, perpetually cautious Skrell. "No weapon signatures, no energy emissions above background radiation levels. The structure is completely dormant, inert for all intents and purposes." Jelra's bioluminescence shifted from a calm sapphire to a thoughtful emerald. "And yet, it exists, and it existed before our hegemony first wave struck their primary world. This suggests a capacity for long-term planning, a level of technological self-sufficiency that defies our previous assessments." Her resonant hum carried a note of profound introspection. The Vitani believed in the interconnectedness of all sentient life, a philosophy deeply at odds with the hegemony's expansionist doctrines. As the Starlight Seeker drew closer, the sheer scale of the Terran orbital station became breathtakingly apparent. It was a marvel of engineering, a skeletal lattice of impossible strength, encompassing a vast interior void that seemed to stretch into infinity. Within this void, faint spectral impressions hinted at massive, internal ecosystems, entire worlds contained within its artificial shell. It was a testament to a species' ambition, a silent challenge to the hegemony's belief in its own unparalleled technological might. "We are within range to attempt activation protocols, Commander," the Skrell reported. "Following Hegemon Vilar's directive, passive, non-aggressive activation, our algorithms are cycling through potential Terran interface languages." Jelra's patterns pulsed with anticipation. "Proceed, but be prepared for anything. This is not merely technology we are interfacing with. This is the silent testament of a species we profoundly misunderstood." The Starlight Seeker extended a single delicate sensor probe, broadcasting a complex series of mathematical prime numbers, a universal greeting, into the colossal station's outer shell. For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence of deep space and the inert megastructure pressed in, a heavy blanket of expectation. Then a faint shimmer, a ripple across the station's surface. Tiny pinpricks of light, like newborn stars, began to illuminate across its vast expanse. The Skrell gasped, his multiple eyes widening. "Energy signatures, localized power conduits activating. It's responding, Commander, but not in a way our algorithms predicted. It's a distributed energy network, rerouting power with incredible efficiency." As the lights grew brighter, a section of the station's outer hull began to articulate, revealing a massive, perfectly formed aperture. It opened slowly, silently, revealing a cavernous docking bay within. The air inside, visible through the Starlight Seeker's advanced external cameras, shimmered with a pale, breathable atmosphere. And then a signal, not the fragmented, lamenting broadcast from Earth, but a direct, coherent, and perfectly translated message. The voice was calm, resonant, and remarkably clear, carrying a surprising depth of emotion despite its synthesized perfection. "Welcome, visitors. Your aggression against our home world has been registered. Your subsequent hesitancy noted. Your current attempt at communication accepted. We are the humans, and we await your measured intent." Jelra's patterns flared, a brilliant burst of gold and violet. Humans. They had a name, and a voice that spoke with an unnerving blend of serene authority and profound disappointment. This was not a species to be conquered, but a presence to be reckoned with. The humans, they call themselves the humans, Jelra echoed, her internal hum resonating with the weight of the moment. Prepare to enter the docking bay. Send a diplomatic party. I will lead it. The entry into the Terran megastructure was an experience that fundamentally altered the hegemony delegation. The docking bay itself was vast, not merely utilitarian, but imbued with an understated elegance. Its walls were not harsh metal, but a material that seemed to absorb and diffuse light, creating a soft, warm glow. The atmosphere was clean, fresh, subtly scented with an array of organic compounds that spoke of lush, living environments. A single figure stood awaiting them. It was humanoid, bipedal, with soft, unarmored skin and expressive facial features. Its form was slender, yet conveyed an underlying strength. Its eyes, deep pools of intelligent awareness, regarded them with an unnerving calm. The human wore simple, elegant clothing, devoid of any military insignia or ostentatious displays of power. It stood patiently, its posture open, yet subtly radiating an inviolable dignity. Jelra, her bioluminescence shifting to a respectful, inquiring blue, was the first to speak, her translated words echoing through the chamber. We are the hegemony. I am Commander Jelra, lead diplomat of the Starlight Seeker. We come in peace, seeking understanding for the aggression we regrettably initiated against your primary world. The human's lips curved into a faint, almost melancholic smile. Regrettably initiated, a curious phrasing for a targeted orbital bombardment. Nevertheless, your willingness to engage in dialogue rather than further destruction is a marginally positive development. I am Emissary Kalen, designated human representative for interstellar contact. Welcome to the Arbor, our primary orbital habitat. Kalen's voice was smooth, cultured, yet carried a hidden resonance that suggested immense intellectual depth. The Arbor, Jelra asked, her patterns flickering with fascination. This colossal structure is your habitat, and you refer to yourselves as humans. Indeed, the Arbor represents but one aspect of our civilization's long-term sustainability initiatives. And human is simply what we are. We understand you refer to our home world as Earth. We simply call it home. And it is now in a state of deep planetary hibernation, a necessary measure given your forceful introduction. Kalen's gaze held a quiet intensity that Jelra found both disarming and profoundly unsettling. There was no anger, no accusation, only a statement of fact, delivered with the weight of profound ethical consideration. Planetary hibernation, Jelra felt a tremor of realization. The subterranean networks, they are part of this hibernation. Our planetary defense systems are multifaceted. The initial orbital shields were designed to register an attack, to establish an aggressor profile, and to buy us time. The subsequent planetary energy fluctuations were not signs of destruction, but of a global-scale environmental transition. Our species has, for centuries, developed the capacity for deep planetary integration. To protect our primary biosphere, we simply withdrew its core functions. Our true population centers, our vital ecosystems, our cultural repositories, all transitioned into shielded, self-sustaining deep-core biomes. The surface, as you observed, became an environmental buffer, a sacrificial shell, if you will. Kalen's hand gestured around the vast bay, a simple, elegant movement that encompassed the true scale of their hidden capabilities. Jelra felt a cold certainty wash over her. The hegemony had not merely underestimated the humans, it had failed to even comprehend their definition of existence. So, when our first wave struck, you were not destroyed, you simply moved your world. Precisely, it was a costly but ultimately successful maneuver. Our species learned long ago the inherent folly of relying solely on conventional military defenses. True resilience lies not in the capacity to destroy, but in the capacity to adapt, to preserve, and to transcend. Kalen's eyes held a spark of ancient wisdom, a depth that spoke of trials overcome and profound philosophical shifts. Your initial broadcast, prior to your aggressive action, spoke of neutralizing a potential threat. We registered your intent. We disagreed with your methodology, and we chose a path of preservation over confrontation, primarily to ensure the survival of our biological and cultural heritage, and perhaps to offer a lesson in the process. A lesson, the word hung in the air, weighted with silent reproach. The hegemony, in its arrogant assumption of dominance, had taught the humans nothing of military might. But the humans, in their calm, ethical withdrawal, had revealed to the hegemony a terrifying depth of strategic and philosophical advancement. The broadcast from Earth, the lament we partially deciphered, Jelra ventured, her bioluminescence shifting to a deferential purple. It spoke of a terrible lesson learned and the cost of an avoidable ignorance. Was this directed at us? Kalen nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. It was. The terrible lesson was for humanity, the lesson that despite our advancements, despite our hopes for a peaceful galactic future, there would always be those who sought to conquer through fear and misunderstanding. The avoidable ignorance was yours, the ignorance of not seeking to understand, of not attempting to communicate before resorting to violence. We had been observing your hegemony for centuries. Your patterns of expansion, your assimilation of nascent species, your reliance on military supremacy. We hope to avoid direct confrontation, to perhaps even foster a different path for you through our quiet example. Your preemptive strike, however, negated that possibility. The revelation struck Jelra with the force of a cosmic storm. The humans had been observing them. The hegemony, the supposed apex predator of the galaxy, had been unknowingly scrutinized by a species it deemed primitive. Their every conquest, every act of aggression, every internal political maneuver likely analyzed and catalogued. The sheer audacity of this quiet surveillance, combined with their capacity for complete planetary relocation, revealed a species that operated on an entirely different plane of existence. You observed us for how long? Why did you not reveal yourselves? Jelra's voice was hushed, the weight of the implications pressing down on her. For generations, we chose not to reveal ourselves because your hegemony, as we observed, was not ready for peaceful coexistence with a species of our philosophical and technological orientation. Your empire operates on a foundational principle of hierarchical dominance. Introducing a species that demonstrated alternative forms of power, a power rooted in ethics, adaptability, and collective preservation, rather than destructive might, would have been met with suspicion, fear, and ultimately aggression. We preferred to nurture our own development, to cultivate a galactic presence based on understanding, not conquest. Kalen's gaze swept over the hegemony delegation, a look of profound, almost mournful wisdom. Another human joined Kalen, a younger individual with a bright, inquisitive gaze. Our initial forays into FTL, the primitive probes your sensors detected, were not tests of propulsion, but tests of observation. They were designed to attract attention, yes, but also to measure the nature of the attention they received. Your response confirmed our long-held assessments of your hegemony's predatory tendencies. The younger human's voice was lighter than Kalen's, but no less serious. Jelra felt a wave of shame wash over her. The hegemony, for all its might, had been played. Its aggression had been a predictable outcome, an expected data point in the human's grander strategy of self-preservation and observation. So, your initial primitive signals, they were a deliberate deception. Kalen inclined his head. A necessary measure. To appear less than we are to gauge the true nature of potential aggressors is a strategy born of hard-won experience. Our own history is replete with examples of unchecked aggression, of species destroying each other through fear and misunderstanding. We chose a different path, a path of quiet strength, of ethical advancement, of technological resilience that renders overt conflict largely obsolete for us. The depth of their strategic foresight, their unwavering adherence to a principled philosophy of non-aggression, even in the face of existential threat, left Jelra speechless. The hegemony had defined power through conquest. The humans had redefined it through preservation and ethical transcendence. What is your intent now, Emissary Kalen? Jelra finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. You possess the means to retaliate, to strike back with a force we clearly do not comprehend, yet you choose dialogue. Why? Kalen's melancholic smile returned. Because even a terrible lesson can lead to growth. Even avoidable ignorance can be overcome. We are not a vengeful species, Commander. We are a species that believes in the potential for all sentient life to evolve beyond its base. Our instincts. Your hegemon, in sending an unarmed diplomatic vessel, has demonstrated a flicker of that potential. We seek not to destroy you, but to understand if you are capable of truly understanding us. To ascertain if the hegemony can learn from its mistakes, or if it is condemned to repeat them across the galaxy. The weight of Kalen's words was immense. It was not a threat, but a challenge. A moral and philosophical challenge to the very core of the hegemony's existence. The Empire had struck Earth first. But the final danger was not human weaponry, but the profound ethical mirror humanity held up to the hegemony, forcing it to confront the true cost of its ambition. News of the human encounter, translated and relayed with meticulous detail by Commander Jelra, sent shockwaves through the Hegemony Council. Admiral Katar in his sterile command center found his strategic models utterly shattered. His killer instincts screamed for immediate escalation, for a full military mobilization against this impossibly advanced, deceptively passive species. Yet the cold, hard data and Jelra's detailed report painted a picture of futility. How could one engage an enemy that simply moved its planet? How could one conquer a species that had redefined the very concept of warfare through non-engagement? Counselor Vesk, the pragmatic Gilak, projected his holographic form into Katar's chambers, his bioluminescence pulsing with a frantic internal debate. Admiral, the economic implications are catastrophic. We expended significant resources, committed valuable fleet assets, all based on flawed intelligence. The projected resource acquisition from Earth is now negated, and the knowledge that a species of this caliber has been observing us for centuries. It undermines the very foundation of our intelligence networks. Indeed, Counselor, and the philosophical implications are even more unsettling, Katar rumbled, his multiple eyes fixed on a projected image of the arbor now shimmering with active, gentle energy. They speak of transcendence, of ethical advancement. Their power is not merely technological, it is ideological. They force us to question the very principles upon which our hegemony was built. Ambassador Xylos, having witnessed Jelra's live report, was uncharacteristically subdued. His iridescent scales were dull, his movements slow. Hegemon Vilar is convening an emergency session. The tremors from this revelation are shaking the hegemony to its core. There is talk of internal dissent, of factionalism. Some species, those who have long chafed under Kyler dominance, see this as an opportunity for what I am not yet certain. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council was unlike any Katar had ever attended. The Grand Chamber, usually a stage for carefully choreographed debates and power plays, was now a crucible of raw emotion and fear. Species that rarely spoke out against the established order now raised their voices, their diverse forms agitated, their pheromones thick with anxiety. Jelra, standing before them, her Vitani bioluminescence radiating a quiet resolve, presented her full report, her translation systems articulating Kalen's calm, profound pronouncements with chilling accuracy. When she finished, the chamber erupted. "They watched us for centuries," a multi-limbed avian species shrieked, its feathers ruffled in distress. "Our conquests, our triumphs, our very growth, all catalogued as if we were primitive test subjects. They speak of ethical advancement as if we are the barbarous ones." Another, a reptilian species with heavy, armored plates, roared. "This is an insult, a profound humiliation." Hegemon Vilar, perched atop its dais, pulsed with a controlled intensity. "Silence! Let us not devolve into unproductive emotional outbursts. We face a challenge of unprecedented scale, a species that defines power not by what it destroys, but by what it preserves, a species that has chosen to transcend the very conflicts we embrace. We must confront the truth of their existence and the implications for our own." Katar stepped forward, his massive form exuding a chilling calm amidst the chaos. "Hegemon Council, our tactical models are obsolete, our intelligence protocols are compromised, our foundational assumptions about galactic power are shattered. The humans are not an enemy to be conquered, but a paradigm to be understood. To engage them in conventional warfare would be an act of galactic self-immolation. Their true capabilities, still largely hidden, are almost certainly beyond anything we can currently conceive. We struck Earth first. They demonstrated the profound error of that action, not with force, but with a quiet display of their true nature." Ambassador Xylos, his scales now regaining some of their luster, slithered to the forefront. "Hegemon, Admiral Katar speaks with uncharacteristic wisdom. The humans have offered us a path not of surrender, but of self-reflection. They did not retaliate with violence. They offered dialogue, a dialogue predicated on our capacity for learning, for growth beyond our primitive fears, as they so eloquently put it." His voice, usually laced with cynicism, now held a strange, almost hopeful tremor. "This final danger they represent is not to our physical existence, but to our self-perception, to the very idea of what an empire should be. We must engage them. Not with weapons, but with genuine inquiry." Hegemon Vilar's light flared, encompassing the entire chamber in a radiant, unifying glow. Then it is decided. We seek not conquest, but an alliance, an understanding. Admiral Katar, prepare for a formal diplomatic delegation to the Arbor. Commander Jelra, you will lead it. Counselor Vesk, you will provide economic and logistical expertise. Ambassador Xylos, your diplomatic acumen will be invaluable. We will approach the humans with humility. We will demonstrate our capacity for change. The future of the hegemony, perhaps even the future of this sector of the galaxy, depends on our ability to learn this terrible lesson and overcome our avoidable ignorance. The journey to the Arbor for the formal hegemony delegation was fraught with a mixture of apprehension and reluctant hope. The composition of the delegation itself was a testament to the seismic shift in hegemony policy. Admiral Katar, the architect of the initial strike, was present, his military mind struggling to reframe its understanding of strength. Counselor Vesk, ever pragmatic, sought to understand the economic potential of a species capable of such technological marvels. Ambassador Xylos, the master manipulator, now found himself in the unprecedented position of needing genuine, honest dialogue. And Jelra, the Vitani diplomat, served as the bridge, her empathy and initial contact having paved the way for this precarious encounter. Emissary Kalen greeted them at the entrance to a vast, living chamber within the Arbor. The space was an intricate tapestry of biological and technological integration, far beyond mere aesthetics. Organic structures pulsed with soft light, filtering breathable air and recycling nutrients. Water flowed in gentle streams, creating miniature ecosystems. It was a space that felt alive, a stark contrast to the sterile, imposing grandeur of hegemony architecture. "Welcome, representatives of the hegemony," Kalen's voice resonated, calm and unwavering. "We appreciate your willingness to engage in this dialogue. It speaks of a nascent understanding, a first step towards bridging the chasm between our civilizations." Katar, his Kyler pride still a subtle burden, spoke first. "Emissary Kalen, we acknowledge our profound misjudgment. Our initial strike was an act of aggression born of fear and flawed intelligence. We seek to rectify this error. We offer reparations for the damage caused to your planetary surface, and we desire a formal alliance, one based on mutual respect and genuine understanding." Kalen's gaze held Katar's, a long, assessing look that seemed to probe the very depths of the Kyler commander's being. "Reparations are not necessary, Admiral. Our planet will regenerate in time. Our technology is designed for resilience, not for external compensation. What we seek is genuine change within your hegemony, a shift away from the philosophy of preemptive aggression, a commitment to peaceful exploration and principled coexistence. For an alliance to truly hold meaning, it must be founded on shared values, not merely on shared convenience." Vesk, ever direct, interjected. "Emissary, the hegemony is a complex political entity. Such a fundamental shift in philosophy, while desirable, will require time and perhaps a catalyst. Can the humans provide such a catalyst? Do you possess knowledge, technology, or a strategic perspective that could aid our hegemony in transcending its historical tendencies?" Kalen turned his gaze to Vesk. "Our philosophy is our greatest technology, Counselor. It is the wisdom gained from confronting our own destructive past, from nearly annihilating ourselves, that led us to develop the systems you now observe. The capacity for planetary relocation, the deep core biomes, the ethical frameworks for interstellar interaction. These are all byproducts of our internal evolution. We are willing to share this journey, this knowledge. But the choice to undertake it must be genuinely yours." Ambassador Xylos, seizing the diplomatic opening, pressed further. "Emissary, the hegemony has faced many challenges in its long history. Internal strife, external threats, resource scarcity. These pressures have often driven our decisive actions. Can you offer a path to stability that does not rely on such measures?" Kalen nodded, his eyes reflecting a profound empathy. "We understand the pressures that shape civilizations. Our own history is rife with such challenges. We have learned that true stability comes not from imposing order, but from fostering cooperation, from recognizing the inherent value of every sentient life, and from working towards collective upliftment. We possess knowledge of advanced ecological restoration, sustainable energy generation on a galactic scale, and bioengineering techniques that could alleviate many of your resource and environmental concerns. But again, these are tools. The will to use them ethically, to integrate them into a philosophy of galactic stewardship, must originate within the hegemony itself." The discussions stretched for days, then weeks. The humans were patient, articulate and utterly unwavering in their ethical stance. They detailed their long journey from a warring, self-destructive species to one that embraced planetary integration, deep space colonization through sustainable habitats like the Arbor, and a philosophy of non-aggression and universal custodianship. They revealed their deep understanding of the hegemony's own history, its political structures, its economic vulnerabilities. They held up a mirror, not in judgment, but in silent, empathetic understanding, showing the hegemony the patterns of its own self-inflicted wounds. Qatar found himself listening, truly listening, for the first time in his career. The humans were not weak. They were overwhelmingly powerful, but their power was expressed in ways he had never conceived of. Their advanced stealth technology, their capacity for planetary resilience, their deep philosophical understanding of galactic dynamics, these were weapons more potent than any hypercannon. They had effectively rendered the hegemony's military might irrelevant against them. And in doing so, they had forced the hegemony to reevaluate what might truly meant. As the discussions drew to a close, a fragile understanding began to form. The hegemony, in its raw confrontation with its own limitations and its historical patterns, began to glimpse a different path. A path not of conquest, but of collaboration. Not of fear, but of mutual respect. Then the twist. It came without warning, a sudden blinding flash of energy emanating from the deepest reaches of uncharted space, far beyond the known boundaries of the hegemony or even the humans' extended observation networks. It was a signal, but not a communication. It was an event, a colossal, hyperdimensional wavefront propagating at speeds that defied conventional physics, tore through a remote, uninhabited sector of the galaxy. It consumed entire star systems, not in an explosion, but in a complete erasure, leaving behind only a silent, cosmic void. The anomaly was detected simultaneously by hegemony deep space probes and humans' more advanced, esoteric sensor networks. Both species immediately diverted all available computational power to analysis. The data was terrifying. Emissary Kalen Admiral Qatar, Jelra projected into the shared holographic chamber within the Arbor, her Vitani patterns pulsing with alarm. Our combined sensor data confirms it, an extinction-level event, a cosmic wave of unknown origin consuming everything in its path, and it is accelerating. Its trajectory points directly towards this sector, towards your hegemony core worlds, towards Earth, towards the Arbor. Kalen's calm facade remained, but his eyes, deep and knowing, held a flicker of ancient concern. We have observed precursors to such events in distant galaxies, Admiral, ancient, destructive phenomena that consume entire cosmological structures. We had hoped this sector would remain untouched for millennia. It seems our calculations were slightly optimistic. Qatar's Kyler instincts, long dormant, flared back to life, but this time shorn of arrogance, imbued with a newfound humility. What is it? A natural phenomenon? A weapon of incomprehensible scale? Neither, and perhaps both, Kalen replied, his voice resonating with a quiet gravity. Our ancient lore, passed down through generations of those who study the cosmic tapestry, speaks of such phenomena as the Great Silence. Not a weapon, but a fundamental force of universal reset. A cleansing. It consumes complex energy signatures, higher forms of organized matter, and leaves behind only the most rudimentary, unformed cosmic dust. It is, in essence, the universe purging itself of imbalance. Vesk, his holographic form flickering with unprecedented fear, rumbled. Imbalance? Emissary, our hegemony is not without its flaws, but we are a thriving, expanding civilization. How can we be in imbalance? Perhaps, Kalen offered, his gaze sweeping over the hegemony delegates. The imbalance is in our collective inability to transcend our own destructive patterns, in our reliance on conflict, on exploitation, on the very primitive fears that drove your initial strike. The Great Silence is a cosmic response to civilizations that fail to evolve beyond self-destructive tendencies on a galactic scale. The revelation was terrifying. The hegemony, in its self-proclaimed glory, had been on a trajectory towards cosmic annihilation, not merely through its own internal conflicts, but by attracting the attention of a fundamental universal force. And humanity, with its quiet wisdom and ethical advancements, was perhaps the only species that had ever truly understood such a threat. Is there a defense, a way to stop it? Qatar demanded, his voice thick with a desperate urgency. Kalen shook his head slowly. No conventional defense. It cannot be fought with weapons, for it is not an enemy in the traditional sense. It cannot be outrun, for its propagation speed defies all known propulsion. However, Kalen paused, his eyes glowing with an ancient, almost sorrowful hope. There is a theoretical concept, an ancient precursor technology we have been studying for centuries, hidden within the fabric of our own reality. A way to create a dimensional pocket, to temporarily shield an entire sector from the wave's influence. But it requires immense, coordinated energy, a collective effort on a scale that surpasses even our combined resources. A dimensional pocket? Vesk's rumbling voice was now filled with a desperate awe. Such a feat is beyond the hegemony's capabilities. It is the stuff of ancient myth. And yet the schematics exist within our archives. They require a nexus of consciousness, a collective intent focused with such precision and energy that it creates a localized spatial anomaly, Kalen explained. Our ancestors, in their final moments before their own self-inflicted near-extinction, foresaw this threat. They left behind the blueprint for this escape, but they never achieved the unity, the ethical clarity, the shared purpose to activate it. Ambassador Xylos, his cynicism finally broken, looked at Kalen with an almost childlike wonder. So, the humans, you have been preparing for this? This great silence is the ultimate final danger you anticipated. We have been preparing for the possibility of it, Kalen confirmed. Our philosophical evolution, our deep planetary integration, our focus on sustainable living and collective consciousness, all were indirect preparations, not to fight it but to find a way to preserve life from it. And now the opportunity has presented itself. The hegemony, despite its past, now faces the same existential threat. Our combined scientific might, our collective intent, our shared will to survive. It is perhaps enough, but it requires absolute unity, no more preemptive strikes, no more fear-driven aggression, only a focused, collective will to preserve life itself. The choice was stark, clear, and terrifying. The hegemony in its arrogance had struck Earth first, only to discover that the true, final danger was not humanity's retaliation, but a cosmic reckoning it had inadvertently accelerated. And now humanity, the species it had sought to neutralize, held the only key to their shared survival. The irony was profound, devastating, and ultimately humbling. Hegemon Velar, observing from its distant core world, pulsed with a brilliance that encompassed the entire projected meeting chamber. Then the choice is made. We will dedicate every resource, every vessel, every mind. We will learn this lesson. We will overcome this ignorance. We will forge this unity. Humanity, you have shown us not just a danger, but a path. A final, desperate path to survival. We are ready. The alliance formed with a speed and intensity born of existential dread. Hegemony scientists worked side by side with human researchers, a chaotic yet remarkably efficient synergy of diverse intellects. The humans, true to their word, shared their ancient schematics, their vast repositories of knowledge, and their profound understanding of consciousness and energy manipulation. The hegemony, for its part, mobilized its immense industrial capacity, its vast fleets not for war, but for a singular, desperate act of galactic preservation. The plan was audacious, bordering on the mythical, to create a localized, self-sustaining dimensional pocket, a temporary refuge that would shield a significant portion of this galactic arm from the inexorable march of the Great Silence. It required a colossal energy output, far beyond any known power generation. It required a network of consciousness amplifiers, designed to focus the collective will of billions into a single, cohesive intent. And it required a central nexus, a beacon to anchor the pocket in the fabric of space-time. That beacon, the humans revealed, was the Arbor itself. Their colossal orbital habitat, built with materials that defied hegemony understanding, had always been more than a habitat. It was a latent dimensional anchor, a device awaiting activation by a sufficiently unified, ethically evolved consciousness. Admiral Katar, his face etched with a newfound gravity, oversaw the deployment of hegemony fleet elements around the Arbor, not as an invasion G-force, but as a protective barrier, a shield against stray cosmic debris or unforeseen gravitational stresses. His Kyler instincts, once honed for destruction, were now repurposed for meticulous defense, for precise coordination of energy conduits and data streams. Counselor Vesk, the pragmatic Gilak, orchestrated the logistical nightmare of channeling immense power from hegemony core worlds and outlying systems to the nexus point. His species, masters of efficiency, found themselves pushed to their limits by the sheer scale of the human requirements. Yet the urgency of the threat, the looming shadow of the Great Silence spurred them to unprecedented levels of cooperation. Ambassador Xylos, having shed his manipulative tendencies, found himself working alongside human diplomats, not to negotiate, but to explain, to mediate, to inspire. He helped craft the universal appeals for unity, the broadcasts that traversed hegemony space, urging every sentient being to contribute their collective consciousness, their will to survive, to the immense effort. Emissary Kalen, calm amidst the galactic storm, guided them all. His profound philosophical insights, his deep understanding of cosmic energies, and his unwavering belief in the potential for galactic unity became the moral and intellectual compass of the entire operation. He spoke of the universal web, the interconnectedness of all life, and how this act of collective survival was not just for the hegemony or for humanity, but for the very principle of conscious existence. Billions of beings across countless worlds, within and beyond the hegemony, joined the effort. Their collective thoughts, their shared hope, their desperate will to live flowed through the vast consciousness amplifiers, channeled by the hegemony's advanced communication networks and amplified by the humans' esoteric technology. The dimensional pocket began to shimmer into existence, a vast, translucent bubble of distorted space, forming around the arbor and the designated sector. The Great Silence arrived, not with a bang, but with a terrifying, absolute stillness. It was a cosmic void, a hungry emptiness that consumed light, matter, and energy with indifferent efficiency. As its wavefront approached the nascent dimensional pocket, the fabric of reality around them groaned under the immense pressure. Inside the arbor, the central chamber, now teeming with hegemony and human personnel, vibrated with a palpable energy. Kalen stood at the heart of the nexus, his eyes closed, his form radiating a powerful, unifying aura. "It is here," his voice resonated, a calm presence amidst the deafening roar of the cosmic forces. "Focus your intent, visualize the sanctuary, feel the interconnectedness. We are one." The dimensional pocket solidified, a breathtaking act of collective will and advanced science. The Great Silence swept past, a silent, ravenous ghost, leaving behind a swathe of absolute nothingness where vibrant star systems once existed. But within the shimmering pocket, life, light, and the hopeful hum of unified civilizations continued. As the immediate danger receded and the pocket stabilized, an eerie quiet settled over the arbor. The Great Silence had passed. They had survived. Kalen opened his eyes, a profound weariness etched onto his face, yet also a triumphant light. "We have done it. We have preserved a fragment of our galaxy, but the universe outside, it is irrevocably changed." Katar, standing beside him, looked out through the translucent walls of the pocket at the infinite void where millions of stars had once blazed. The magnitude of what they had witnessed, what they had escaped, dwarfed any conflict he had ever known. "The cost is unimaginable." "The cost of ignorance is always unimaginable, Admiral," Kalen replied, his voice soft. "But the value of unity, of understanding, of shared purpose, is infinite. We humans once brought ourselves to the brink of self-destruction. We learned to look within, to evolve, to find strength not in domination, but in preservation. Your hegemony, by confronting its own flaws, by choosing cooperation over conquest, has also taken a monumental step in its evolution." Ambassador Xylos, his scales now gleaming with a profound respect, approached Kalen. "Emissary, the humans, you always knew this was coming, didn't you? This was the ultimate purpose of the arbor, of your philosophy, of your deep planetary integration. To survive a cosmic reset, to be a beacon for those who would learn." Kalen nodded, a faint, wise smile touching his lips. "Our ancestors, in their desperation, left us clues, warnings. They taught us that the universe is not merely a stage for conquest, but a living, breathing entity with its own rhythms, its own cycles, and that civilizations, in their arrogance, can become an imbalance. We chose to relearn balance. We chose a path of custodianship, of quiet evolution, to ensure that life in some form would end. Ray, your hegemony in its aggressive expansion was inadvertently building the very infrastructure, the immense energy grids, the vast communication networks, that we needed to power this final, desperate act of preservation. Your strike on Earth, in a strange, terrible way, accelerated the necessary confrontation, forcing you to look beyond your own limited paradigms. The realization hung in the air, a final, profound twist. The Empire had struck Earth first, believing it was securing its dominance. But in doing so, it had been unwittingly guided, nudged towards a revelation of its own existential peril, and towards the very species that held the key to its survival. Humanity, in its quiet, ethical power, had not just survived the Empire's aggression, It had transformed it into a crucible for shared salvation. Hegemon Vilar's final address, broadcast across the nascent galactic pocket, resonated with a new humility, a profound understanding. We are safe for now, but the universe outside our sanctuary has changed. We stand on the precipice of a new dawn born not of conquest but of cooperation. Humanity, you are not merely a species we misunderstood. You are the architects of our improbable survival. You taught us that true strength lies not in the capacity to destroy, but in the will to preserve. You showed us that the greatest danger is not an external foe, but the internal blindness that prevents us from recognizing our shared destiny. Together, within this sanctuary, we will rebuild. We will learn. And we will remember the terrible lesson and the infinite value of an avoidable ignorance now finally overcome. The future was uncertain, contained within a fragile bubble of reality amidst an infinite void. But for the first time in millennia, the hegemony looked upon humanity not with fear or arrogance, but with profound respect, with gratitude, and with a shared, hopeful vision for a truly unified galactic future. The Empire had indeed struck Earth first, but they had received not just a danger, but a final, transformative revelation. Humanity had given them not a war, but a choice, evolution or extinction, and in choosing evolution they had chosen, finally, life.